Our next speaker, Joyce Zhao, joins us from Takeda Pharmaceuticals, where she leads the combination products. And she's going to actually take us through an application regulatory grade credibility, has been alluded to, and the process that she's been using. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I need to familiar me with this. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk you through about the application of the V&V40 to assess the computational model of a prefilled syringe, which is the collaboration between Dassault Systèmes and Takeda. So the break-loose glide force is one of our, the functionality we're looking at whenever we have an injectable launched to the market, which will use the prefilled syringe. So the break-loose glide force is the forces we need required for the patients or the users to push the plunger rod and then expel out all the drug volume out to enable the injection to the patients. So out of spec of the break-loose glide force, which means that the break-loose glide force is too high, that the user cannot push the plunger rod and then to do the injection, which will cause there's no dose or low dose or partial dose to the patients. So the harm to the patients is there's a risk that if this is very critical, a drug product for the patients, it might cause their worsen of their symptom immediately, or if it's just like the chronic diseases, and then you will cause like the inconvenience or the delay of the dose. So to make sure that we know and that we can control the break-loose glide force when the patients use it, and there's avoid any issue to use the prefilled syringe or the other drug product delivery system. And so that's why we start to establish a simulation model to simulate the break-loose glide force and to predict the break-loose glide force to see and how we can improve the product and the device and to avoid the harm or the risk that's due to the high BLGF to the patients. So after we established this model, and then we integrate it into our whole life cycle of the product development, which is from feasibility all the way to the development and the post-market life cycle management. So that will, give us like the significant reduction of the physical experiment, and also to improve our efficiency and the safety to the patients, and also mitigate the development risks finally to accelerate our product to the market. Most important thing is if we want to submit this model to the health authority, especially FDA, so we need to show this model is actually credible to the context of use, right? So what we do is now we use the FDA recognized V&V40 framework to assess the credibility of our computational model and to make it submittable to support our regulatory submission. Then here is the break-loose glide force model. It consists two parts, two sub-models. One is the CFD model, which to simulate the hydrodynamic force, and the other one is the FEA model, which the CFD model is the hydrodynamic force from the CFD model is one of the key inputs as the FEA model. Once we have those two models set up, we're going to simulate or predict the break, loose, and glide force. Then, so we will use the V&V40 framework to assess the credibility of the computational model. The CFD model, what we use is to simulate or to predict the hydrodynamic force. The hydrodynamic force is actually, that's the force due to the pressure drop during the injection of the drug product. So this force is the critical part of the glide force when we do the injection. So the CFD solver details including three parts. One is the finite volume, the semi-implicit Reynolds average Navier-Stokes solver, and then we use the multi-phase model to calculate the headspace behavior. Headspace is the space, which is the air column between the drug product and the stopper. And then so the stopper is the small part, and you can see that from the right corner of the slide. So that's the stopper, what we call the stopper. And then so once we get the hydrodynamic force, we're gonna input into our FEA model, which to take into all the effects from the frictional force between the stopper and the inner wall of the syringe, and also take into account of the hydrodynamic force effect, and to come up with the break, loose, glide force. And as you can see that there are two charts, and the first one, the upper one is the one that from our simulation, and down there, that's from our bench test, and you can see that those two matches very well. So actually, when we compare the results, that's the less than 1% difference between the simulation results and the test results. Here is the bench test. Our simulation is built up. This test method is developed based on the ISO 11040 and also validated through the gauge RNR, which is documented in our Takeda quality system. And just want to mention that for this kind of standard testing, and the FDA and all the health authorities, what they recognize is the ISO 11040. So all our test method needs to be based on, developed based on the ISO 11040 for the break, loose, glide force. And also, this is also the FDA recognized ISO standard for this testing. So all the test parameters we use here is also as the boundary conditions or the initial condition, and also the input of the simulation. Then once we establish the simulation model, and we start to use the V&V40 to assess the credibility, right? So that's here we list out the charts, which is directly from the V&V40, and then so the first one we need to define is the question of interest. So the question of interest is, does the break, loose, glide force meet the predefined specification range, right? So the content of use is, on this model, we're gonna predict the breakout and glide force of a prefilled syringe when we deliver a certain dose of a drug product. And then so we, just like what we mentioned previously, and we have two sub-models. One is the CFD model to to predict the hydrodynamic force, and then we will use it as the input to a subsequent FDA model to predict the break loose and glide force. The key inputs of this model is including the drug product rheology property, like the viscosity, density, and also the geometries of the PFS, like the inner diameter of the barrel, the barrel length, the outer diameter of the barrel, and also the needle gauge, the stopper, and the stopper material property. Then so this model can be applied to not only the 1 ml, but also the 2 ml PFS, and the drug viscosity covers from 1 CP centipoise to the 50 centipoise. And then so the needle gauge, which is very important, critical for the force, which is we can cover from 25 regular wall to 29 gauge regular wall thickness. So the simulation results is going to be combined with our bench test results, address the question of interest. Then before we start our assessment on the model credibility, we need to define the model risk. The model risk consists of 2 parts, and one is the decision consequence, meaning that if we make an incorrect decision based on the model, what's the harm to our patients, right? So like what we already mentioned previously, so if the break loose glide force is higher than its specification, there's a risk that the patients cannot receive the dose or receive just the partial dose. The harm to the patients based on Takeda's risk assessment is that will worsen their symptom. So this is based on the ISO 14971, which is also what FDA defined or recommend their the computational and modeling and credibility assessment. They said that the decision consequence can be, evaluated based on the ISO 4971. That's why we use that. And also Takeda's all our risk assessment documents, like our hazard analysis, our failure mode effect and analysis are all based on ISO 4971. And then so based on our assessment, the Takeda's risk assessment, as well as the ISO 4971, we define that this decision consequence is medium. And then so the model influence. The model influence is how much we rely on this model. Is that solely rely this model to predict, to look at the break loose glide force, or we have the bench test? And so we actually, like what we mentioned already, and we have both bench tests and the model. So because the bench test results is going to be combined with the simulation results, so we say the model influence is also medium. Then with this medium model risk in mind, we start to assess the credibility of our model. There are 3 categories based on the V&V40 requirement. One is the verification. So we want to make sure that what we use, the software is correct. And then so the coding we use to predict the forces are correct. And then so the calculation, the equation or the governing equation we use is also correct. So that's the verification of this model. And also then we go back and we go through the validation of this model. The validation is key here is we need to use the bench test results to validate our simulation results. But we need to make sure that the bench test we're using is correct, right? So that's why we say that to solve the right equation. So here, and we go one by one there to look at all, to assess all the credibility factors. And then then we have another part is the applicability. So if we need to look at and if the model can be applied to as what we defined as the context of use, right? So it's from 1 CP, the viscosity is from 1 CP to 50 CP. The needle gauge is from 25 gauge thin wall to the 29 gauge thin wall, and so on and so forth there. So there are 23 credibility factors actually required to evaluate based on the V&V40. We look at one by one, and then to set up the credibility rigor goal for each individual of the credibility factors. So because our model risk is, this rigor goal should be, is required to set up based on the model risk. Our model risk is medium. So the gradation of B, which is medium, which is the goal is, rigor goal is related and correlates to the medium model risk is chosen here. There are only 2 credibility goal. We set it up as low, which means it's because the rigor level classified as low is because due to there's no, we cannot find the standard requirement for those 2 the factors. And also those 2 factors actually our testing, because our testing is based on the ISO 11040, we all follow in compliance with 11040. So we can say that even the rigor goal we set up as low, but the risk to meet it or to lower than that is insignificant. So that's why we set it up like the low. We also put the justifications in our document. That's ready for the submission. So then, we assessed all the 23 credibility factors one by one, and to compare it to our predefined rigor goals. And then so all the credibility goals are either achieved or exceeded. So yeah, so I'm gonna wrap up with the summary and look forward to the future. So you can see that this model is really has the high accuracy there. So it's just less than when we compare the simulation results with the testing data, it's just 1%, less than 1% difference. And also we apply the V&V40 assessment framework to assess the credibility of this model. And then so all of the rigor goals have been either met or exceeded. So moving forward, this is what Takeda, that's why our regulatory team is very happy with this. And then so we're moving forward to make sure that, because we want more and more to use our in silico modeling to replace some of our testings, to physical testings. So to get all of the model or the in silico simulation ready for submission, moving forward, all of our in silico models, we're going to follow the V&V40 framework to validate it, and then to get it ready for our submission. Yep, I'll take some questions.